it's week 2 in the NFL, and the Falcons are playing prime time football as they travel to Philadelphia to take on the Eagles in Monday Night Football. It's an NFC matchup, and all eyes are on this game tonight. Thank you guys for joining us for the Falcons pregame show presented by Ticketmaster. Of course, Taylor Vismor, Derek Rackley. We're going to be with you guys for the next 30 minutes talking about last week, talking about this week, and what comes with primetime games. This is the first of 4. How excited are you to have a primetime game with the Falcons in it?
Yeah, it's great because, and we'll hear from some of the players about this, but this is, and I don't want to sit here and say that this is what it's all about, right? I mean, when you get to the National Football League, that's what it's all about. And I don't want to take anything away from any of the media partners, but when you have a captive audience, when you're the only show in your window, and basically anybody that wants to watch NFL football is turning on your game. That's what you want. You get all the eyeballs. You get exclusivity. Yes. And so, yes, this is what a lot of players look forward to. I was fortunate enough in my career to play on a couple Mondays and Sundays where you get in that window where it's just you, and there's just a little bit more anticipation, a little bit more nervousness, and I think all that is good.
Yeah, for those of you who don't know, this is going to be the first primetime game for the Falcons since 2022. That's when they played on Thursday night. But this is the first Monday Night Football game for them since 2020. So a lot of guys in this Falcons locker room will be playing primetime for the first time, and we asked them what they thought about the primetime matchup.
Our goal is just to go 1-0 this week. No matter if it's a primetime game or whatever type of game it is, it's to go 1-0 and get a win on the column.
Monday Night Football, they already got a great fan base, supportive fan base already. So with it being their first home game, they just played a game overseas, so they haven't been able to see their play in front of their fans. So they're gonna be hyped. The fans gonna be hyped.
I'm really excited to get going out there, and especially in Philadelphia, where their fans are super hostile. So I'm excited. I can't wait to go out there and play.
Us as the visitors, I think it's gonna be just as exciting for us, because going into a hostile environment should bring out the best in everybody here, and I think that's what you're going to see. And I'm super excited to play in front of that, just in that atmosphere, man. That's what NFL is about.
Pretty cool to see, our team get on a primetime type of game where the whole world's watching, and there's still going to be a normal football game. There's still going to be the same amount of time on the clock. Just be a little bit more hype behind it, nationally televised, and for us to go show out and show the world what we can do.
Being able to play in a primetime game is a blessing within itself, and you just can't take these opportunities for granted. But both squads gonna be ready to roll for sure.
All right, I love what Jesse Bates said. He said this is a normal football game. It's more exciting, but it is a normal football game at the end of the day. And I think what a lot of these younger guys will have to do is find their composure relatively quickly down in Philly today, or up in Philly today, I should say.
Well, they're going to be excited, and that's a good thing because there's going to just be more cameras around, right? And warm-ups on the sidelines after celebration. There's just going to be more opportunities for them to get the press time, if you will. But it just gives you a little bit more juice for this game. But what Jesse Bates said is absolutely right, that once the ball actually is kicked off and they start playing regular football, you kind of lose the fact that you're playing on Monday Night Football, you're playing in prime time. You'll be reminded on a couple of different occasions, but then once the game is going, it's all about executing. It's about your reads, your communication, and just going out there and doing your job as an NFL player. You're not thinking every single play, oh gosh, this is on Monday night. Oh gosh, this is a great broadcast crew. Oh gosh, everybody's watching. You're still going out about your job and trying to make sure that you can succeed to win each individual matchup, to win each play, and ultimately to win the game.
Exactly, and Falcons are still looking for their first win of the season. Obviously, last week did not end the way that the Falcons were wanting to and were hoping to. And I think last week, especially, a lot of fans and people of the media left with a lot of questions regarding this Falcons offense. So let's quickly talk about this Falcons offense and week 1. Looking at that game, what questions did you come away from that offense?
Yeah, I mean, I felt like they've got to get better on third down. Like third down, for a number of reasons, just wasn't good enough to win in the National Football League. Again, going back to when I was playing, like they generally said that if you were 40% or more on third down, you are giving yourself a chance to win. And obviously, as that clip goes higher, 42, 45, even up to 50%, that even improves your chance of winning the football game. Falcons were 2 of 9. That's 22% on third down. It's just not good enough. And a lot of it has to do with where they were at in third down. Was it third and long? Yes, a lot of times it was because of negative yardage plays or untimely penalties. All of those things end up kind of falling together in contributing to them being 22% on third down. If you're going to continue to win football games, you've got to stay on the field offensively, Taylor. You've got to find ways to continue to get first down. A lot of times you look at third down, yes, but that could be also getting a first down on second down or getting another first down and first down. But so much of it has to do with penalties as well. Procedure penalties, holding penalties, illegal hands to the face. All that stuff ends up backing up your drive, and it's extremely difficult to convert when it's 3rd and 17. You've got to keep it at 3rd and 3, 3rd and 4, 3rd and 1. Maybe you just get a quarterback sneak to pick up a fresh set of downs that keeps you on the field, play ball control, and get you closer to scoring.
Yeah, you bring up quarterback sneak. Normally that's lined up under center, and that was, I think, the biggest conversation this week. Not just for Falcons, but like throughout the NFL. Everyone was talking about where Kirk Cousins was lining up, and I told you earlier, I don't know that there's a ton of validity of where he's lining up because he came from the Vikings, and that was only where he lined up was under center. But he has an offensive coordinator in Zach Robinson, where he comes from LA, and the Rams ran pistol and shotgun more than any other team in the NFL last year, and it works for them. But what I would prefer to see more from Kirk Cousins this week is play action. I want to see more play action this week. That doesn't mean get rid of pistol or get rid of shotgun altogether and just go from under center, but I need to see more play action this week from him.
No, I would agree with you. I think it's something that Kirk Cousins has shown throughout the course of his career that he's so good at, and we didn't get a chance to see that in week 1, and I think that's something that does have to change. Now, it could happen from the shotgun. You could still run plenty of different play action concepts when you're playing from the shotgun if that's what Zach Robinson wants to do. That's how he feels like this offense is going to work the most effectively. But you think about it, there's an interesting stat here. Next Gen Stats actually proved that Kirk Cousins did not have one play action play, and it's the first time in the Next Gen Stats era for Kirk Cousins that he did not have at least one snap in play action. That's 121 games for Kirk Cousins. That was a little bit eye-opening for me because of something that he has done so well throughout his career. And also on play action, Cousins 16 touchdown passes over the last 2 years on plays that came from play action. That's the 4th most in the National Football League. If I'm looking back at those stats, if I'm looking back at the tape of Kirk when he was with Minnesota, even back to Washington, I'm saying, you know what? He did actually operate pretty effectively with those type of concepts. And we've got a guy in Bijan Robinson that pulls a lot of eyes from the defense when he runs across the formation, whether it's standing right next to him, whether it's coming across from the slot or from out wide. Just use that eye candy to fool the defense a little bit. Now you've got some opportunities for some big plays because of how he's going to affect the defense.
Exactly. You bring up Bijan Robinson, and obviously he touched the ball more than anyone else that night, except for Kirk Cousins and Drew Dalman, who's a center. He touched the ball. He had 56. He was responsible, for 56% of the plays last week. That's enormous. And I think what the national media was saying, what the Steelers were saying after the game, is we could kind of figure out this offense pretty quickly. We could figure out what they were doing, what they wanted to do, who they were giving the ball to relatively quickly. And head coach Raheem Morris spoke to media earlier this week, and offensive coordinator Zach Robinson, to discuss how in the future they are going to fix these problems.
I think you just got to go get better at what you're doing. The things that you can correct, you correct. The thing that's went well, you continue to do better. The things you did really good in the game, you add on to, but you're not satisfied. You want to get those guys to always have the get better mindset. So like everything that happened on Sunday, you got to have that get better mindset. Yeah, you played well on defense. You didn't play well enough to win. So how do you get better and you find a way to win those football games? You play good enough football or winning football on special teams. What's going to be our edge this week, and how do we find that? On offense, what are the things you want to improve on? What do you want to get better? What was good?
Sure, that's all these games are so hard in the NFL, as you guys know. They're all so close. There's all good defenses. They all present different challenges in their own right. So whether it's a primetime game or a day game, I think it'll feel the exact same once the ball's snapped. Obviously, the anticipation for some of these primetime games leading up to it feels a little bit different. But once the ball's snapped, it's football at the end of the day. So, it's going to be fun to see these guys on Monday night because I know they're going to be excited to play.
All right, so Zach Robinson has the same thought that Jesse Bates does. As soon as you snap the ball, it's football. Football is football. But let's talk about this defense now, because I was really impressed with the defense because they would bend, but they never broke against the Steelers. They didn't allow any touchdowns against the Steelers. They didn't allow them to get in the end zone one time. I mean, I don't know if you've seen this chart. I'm going to get on my soapbox a little bit here. It's Justin Fields' passing chart from week 1. Every one of these dots is a pass that he threw, whether it was incomplete or complete. It's every single pass that Justin Fields threw throughout the 60 minutes in week 1. What you notice here is that there's nothing going on in the middle of the field. Rackley, who lines up in the middle of the field?
A lot of guys.
Yeah, but you know who I'm talking about, Jesse Bates and Justin Simmons.
Yeah.
And that's a problem for Justin Fields. And offensive coordinator Arthur Smith said, I was intentional on not letting Justin throw the ball in the middle of the field because I didn't want to give Jesse Bates and Justin Simmons opportunities to take the ball away. Jerry Gray spoke to me earlier in the week and said, hey, when we get to the Eagles, we need to work on pushing the guys inside the numbers to potentially get those turnovers going. But when you look at that and you see how they were not able to get in the end zone, what do you make of what Justin Fields did and what the defense was able to hold?
Yeah, I mean, I think it was smart play calling to an extent because Arthur Smith, who was just here for a few years and obviously worked with Jesse Bates for a year and knows that Justin Simmons coming in and both of those guys are ball hawking safeties. He says, well, how do I mitigate their availability to make plays in the game? Well, you don't throw it near them, okay? Now, you could also say A.J. Terrell is a really good player as well, and he plays out on the perimeter, but he was better off taking his chances going outside and staying shallow than throwing the ball down the middle of the field. And maybe that's something that Justin Fields showed in OTAs and in training camp that wasn't his strength. So they just worked to what his strength was. They kept everything short, and then, of course, Justin Fields was able to use his legs a few times to pick up some first downs and continue drives. He did end up 17 of 23 in that game. So you can say, yeah, he wasn't able to take very many shots downfield. Yeah, he didn't go in the middle, but he was very effective when he did stay outside on the perimeter, did not throw the ball into the end zone. But to your point, bend but don't break. Did give up some first downs. Pittsburgh was 8 of 17 on third down, 47%. That's winning style of football offensively. However, once they did get into scoring territory, Atlanta was able to kind of ratchet down and force them to field goals. You just got to give the Steelers credit. Every time they had an opportunity for field goals, they put points on the board.
Right. Jesse Bates, Justin Simmons didn't have this like spectacular, super flashy night that I think a lot of people were hoping for. But someone that did have a flashy night in a way and didn't miss a beat was Grady Jarrett. He came back for the first time since week 8 of last year after tearing his ACL. 3 tackles, 2 tackles for loss, 1.5 sacks, and 3 quarterback hits. He now holds the franchise record for quarterback hits with 117. What did you make of Grady Jarrett's first performance back?
Yeah, he brings passion. He brings an excitement to the defense. I think his ability and just the way that he plays makes everybody play a little bit harder, a little bit faster, with a little bit more intensity. And obviously we know the leadership that he brings as well. You can look at this and you say, well, it's not necessarily the most astounding night from a stats perspective, but he did have a sack and a half, and there was only 2 in the game. Matthew Judon had the other half a sack there, but he continued to make his presence felt.
Right.
And I think what happens is as each and every week goes on, as teams start game planning, they're going to say, okay, we got to make sure that we slow down 97. We got to make sure that we slow down 97. Maybe we end up bringing another person to double team on Grady Jarrett, and then all of a sudden you get a one-on-one matchup with Matthew Judon on the outside, or David Onyemata gets loose from the other side because attention is getting directed his way. Those are the type of things that you want to see defensively. You want to see how can we make the offense try to double team on somebody and create a one-on-one matchup that we feel like we can win on the other side.
Yeah, something that I love so much about my job is that I get to sit down with these athletes once a week and talk to them about their performances in each and every game. And I got to sit down with Grady Jarrett to talk about what it was like to be back in week 1 and what he looks forward to tonight in prime time.
My feelings and emotions leading into Week 1, especially after coming off an injury and being my 10th year, were just all over the place. I mean, I had to really channel and stay focused on just doing the best I could, going out there and just playing the game like I always done, and didn't want to make the moment too big than it was, and I also didn't want to not cherish the moment as well. So it was a balance between highs and lows, but I found the right spot mentally to do what I needed to do. I think it's important for fans to stay locked in, know that it's a long season, that our best ball is ahead of us, and we can't do anything but show you, and that's what we owe you, to show you to go put our best ball forward, and that's what I can promise you, that the effort is going to be day in and day out for everybody on this squad to go put their best foot forward to do our best to get some wins and make you proud fans and make you want to continue to pack up that Mercedes-Benz stadium, showing up doing what you got to do and make you proud to wear that Falcon wherever you go in this country. I mean, when you're playing in prime time in front of a lot of people, you got to embrace the moment. You can't let bright lights make you want to shrink or get nervous. You know, this is what we do. This is what we signed up for. You want to play in big games, playing NFL football. You want people all over the country to see what you got. So your best is required when it's required, and definitely that's a time when it is. So you got to embrace and enjoy it, and you know, try to put on a show. I mean, the Philly offense presents so many challenges at every level. I mean, they got a all-star offensive line. All those guys have had a lot of success. And, you know, Saquon Barkley, his resume speaks for itself, generational player. I think Jalen Hurts is an amazing player. It's definitely going to take our best game, and I think we got our best ball ahead of us, but that's going to happen with us paying respect to the resume that these guys have built for themselves. And they're running with offense very, very efficiently. And I think it's going to be a good game, physical game, and it's going to challenge, you know, run game, pass game, disciplines here and there, and we got to finish.
All right, so we name dropped a couple people, and we're going to talk about them in just a second. So let's talk about this Philadelphia Eagles offense really fast. This Monday Night Football Falcons defense versus Philly's offense. I mean, the two names that he dropped, Jalen Hurts, Saquon Barkley, those two pack quite a punch. Just off the rip, how do you defend two guys like that?
Well, let's start with Saquon Barkley,
Yeah.
because he obviously had a great game last week, and he's coming into this one with a lot of confidence. 24 carries, 109 yards, and a couple of touchdowns. And a guy that a lot of people would say that maybe didn't quite live up to his expectations, probably because of injuries when he was with the Giants. But now he's kind of got a newfound interest, if you will, and everything is kind of amplified with him now in Philadelphia. And as of right now, he's kind of been the answer to a lot of their prayers because of what he provided in week one. This guy's got the entire package. But you look at him when he's running the football in traditional running plays. He's extremely strong. He's going to break tackles. He's shifty. He's got top end speed, and they will throw the ball to him out of the backfield. So he's kind of your complete back, and he's one of those guys that you have got to meet at the line of scrimmage. And a lot of times you're going to have to meet him there with more than one player, because if you meet him there with just an arm, he's likely going to run through it. He's that talented of a running back. So stopping the run is going to be a key in every single game, and it's going to be a focus for the defense every single game. But when you're going up against, as Grady said, one of these generational type running backs, you've got to make sure that your run defense is you're ready to play, you're gap sound, and everybody gets to the football.
Right. So, and it's not just Saquon that can run the ball. It's Jalen Hurts, too. This is the second week in the row the Falcons will have a dual threat quarterback.
Yeah.
And Jalen Hurts uses he runs out of the pocket a lot. So how do you contain him and keep him in the pocket?
Well, there's a lot of different ways you can do this. Is that you could dial up defenses to where you've always got him outside in. Okay, easier said than done. But anytime you're rushing upfield, your defensive ends, your pass rushers, outside linebackers have to know that they've got to keep their outside arm free, right? Which means that if you go up inside and you give him the corner, he's going to get outside. And especially if you end up playing man coverage, what does that mean? Your defensive backs and your linebackers are turning their back in a pass play to cover somebody because they're in man-to-man coverage on one pass catcher. So that's where you end up getting hurt, is if you go inside, you leave them the edge, and all of a sudden you've got everybody with their backs turned to them. That's when a 3 or 4 yard gain turns into about a 17 or a 21 yard gain, because he's got that type of athleticism. The other thing you can do is you can start playing spy type defenses where you've always got somebody, one of your safeties, your nickel, maybe it's a linebacker on occasion, that always has his eyes on him. The problem is, if you're doing that, a lot of times you end up with your eyes not in the right place in the passing game. But that's one way to get somebody to where they're always following him if he does end up getting outside the pocket, that maybe you've got a safety that's got some quickness and some tackling ability that can make a play on him. But the problem is, if he makes that one person miss, you're looking at a big play once again. There's a couple of ways to do it, but a lot of times it's just getting everybody the ball, but make sure that if he does tuck it down and run with it, he's doing it up in between the tackles and not getting around the outside.
Yeah, and you mentioned how strong Saquon was, and Jalen Hurts is just as strong. They're probably going to mention it 2 or 3 times tonight, because they did last Friday against the Green Bay Packers, that they can both squat about 500 pounds, and that does nothing but help you when you're pounding the ground and you're trying to go forward with a bunch of offensive and defensive line people all around you. That's where the tush-push comes from, and Jalen Hurts is very good at doing that as well. Let's move on, though, to the pass catchers, because not just the wide receivers, but the tight ends as well, because I think their tight ends can be an enormous impact in this game, because A.J. Brown was downgraded to out earlier Sunday morning. He will no longer be playing today, so it's going to be really the Devontae Smith, the Jahan Dodson show over here, and Dallas Goedert as well, their tight end. So what do you make of this? Is this almost a sigh of relief for the Falcons defense that they don't have these two massive wide receivers to look after and to defend? What do you think of having A.J. Brown out?
I mean, it is. You're able to breathe a little bit easier when a guy like A.J. Brown is not in the game, because he's an elite talent. I mean, he's one of the top guys, especially when they feed him the football. You saw the stats. He got 10 targets last week. They made a concerted effort to try to get the football in his hands. So without having to defend for him, that's going to help out your defense a little bit. One thing I do know, though, is Devontae Smith is a guy that can do it as well. You got to make sure that you have great coverage against him, because he's got the ability to make some plays, especially downfield, because he does have that top-end speed. And Jahan Dotson, even though he came into the season as a number 3, I think he has the talent, especially to be elevated to be a true number 2 in this game, because he's done that before in his career. But yeah, you're going to have to make sure that Devontae Smith is accounted for on everyone. You don't let him get behind the defense and rip off some explosive plays, because they will try to take some shots to him. But as you mentioned, Dallas Goedert in the middle of the field is another. You look at Philadelphia. Philadelphia's always had really good tight ends that have made a difference. Think about the Zach Ertz days as well. I mean, very talented tight ends that are going to help take advantage of a defense, try to exploit the middle of the field. Yes, Atlanta's very strong in the middle of the field with their 2 safeties, but I would tend to believe that they're going to try to take some shots to him as well.
Exactly. I'm glad you brought up Dallas Goedert. I brought him up earlier as well. This team, when Kellen Moore, their new offensive coordinator, they like to run in 11 personnel. I think with A.J. Brown out, you could see way more 12 personnel now, having 2 tight ends in there and using Goedert more as a wide receiver. We're running out of time, though. I think we got 3 minutes until we got to be off air. So let's quickly get to these inactives. As we know, like we just mentioned, A.J. Brown will be inactive today for the Philadelphia Eagles. Devin White, the inside linebacker, he will also be out. He was a free agent acquisition for the Eagles. For the Falcons, though, let's look at this. Nothing crazy, nothing that stands out to us on the inactives list. Something to note, though, Nate Landman, the inside linebacker for the Falcons, he was placed on IR earlier this morning. He was out of practice all week, questionable to play, and then was listed as out on Friday after their practice. So missing Nate Landman today. You still have Troy Anderson, you still have Caden Ellis, and you do have J.D. Bertrand, their rookie. But what do you make of Nate Landman not being able to make the game today?
Well, I mean, it's obviously unfortunate, because he showed what his value was last year, but also I would say that not this coaching staff, but this team has understood what it's been to not have one of your top linebackers in the lineup. They had to deal with it last year. So I think it's unfortunate, but as you mentioned, they drafted a player in J.D. Bertrand that they feel very confident with. He might get elevated to a little bit more of an important role in this game, and you're going to have to see Troy Anderson step up and be the difference maker at the inside linebacker position.
All right, so let's get to our keys of the game presented by Wells Fargo. Rack, what is your first key tonight?
All right, I'm going to say it's win the turnover margin, and I could say this for every single game, but yes, I'm going to say it again, because Atlanta lost the turnover margin. You heard the head coach from the Falcons talk about it last week. If you're going to lose the turnover margin, you're going to have a difficult time winning in the National Football League. So you've got to win, especially when you're playing on the road there. Jalen Hurts did throw a couple interceptions last week. Let's try to force him into making another one this week. But then offensively, we've got to make sure that we secure the football away. This needs to be a 0 turnover night for Atlanta.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought up his interceptions, because he had 2. So he could be giving opportunities for this Falcons defense to have a little pop and a little spark early in the game. What's your second key to the game tonight?
All right, 1 or fewer explosive plays on defense. 1 or fewer. We just talked about Devontae Smith, but you got to make sure that you're not having busted coverages or guys running free down the middle of the field, and don't let these receivers get behind the defense and chew up big-time yards, because guess what that's going to do? It's going to get that crowd in a frenzy, and that's the last thing that you want to do in Philadelphia. But make sure everything stays in front of you. Limit those explosive plays to 1 or fewer tonight.
Yeah, Devontae Smith, he's going to beat you on that route. He's going to create a lot of space where there seems to be no space, and if he beats you, he might be gone. So let's try to contain Devontae Smith as much as possible. Third and final key to the game.
Got to stay on schedule with the chains offensively in this game. And a lot of that has to do with their success on first down, whether it's running or throwing the football, but it also has to do with on third down. Make sure that we're not having any penalties that are putting us behind the chains. 1st and 15, 2nd and 15, 3rd and 15. You just can't have those situations when you're playing on the road. You're going to fight crowd noise. Let's keep it at 3rd and 3, 3rd and 2, 3rd and 1, stay on schedule with the chains.
Yeah, the penalties hurt the Falcons offense last week against the Steelers in the second half. My key to the game, I gave you one last week. I'm not going to start doing this every single week, but my key to the game again this week is for this Falcons defense to bend and not break. This is an elite offense they're going up against. Let's see if they can bend and not break again this week. But for right now, we have to get off in 30 seconds, so let's get out of here. Thank you guys for joining us for the Falcons pregame show presented by Ticketmaster. We're going to be back in Mercedes-Benz Stadium next week for Sunday Night Football as we host the Kansas City Chiefs. But for right now, we're going to let you guys go. It's going to be the Monday Night Football game will be on ESPN starting at 8:15. See you on Sunday.